In today's video, we're checking out the Fender Tone Master Super-Reverb. The original Super-Reverb is my all-time favorite Fender amp, so I'm keen to check this out. In this intro track you're about to hear, I had the amplifier mic'd up with two microphones, a Shure SM57 and a Sennheiser E906, so I'm not using the XLR out with the IRs. I'll talk a little bit more about the features of this in just a moment. A massive thank you to Fender Australia for the loan of this. I don't get to keep it, nor are they paying me to make this video, so all thoughts about this will be my own. I'll give you my thoughts about it at the end of this video. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the Fender Super-Reverb amp up close. Now, if you want access to the reverb and the awesome sounding vibrato, use this channel over here. It doesn't work on the normal channel, which is just a straight up clean channel with a 2-band EQ, only having bass and treble. A lot of people like this. It does sound nice with some delay going into it, or if you just want something dead clean. But I love playing into this channel over here because we do get that reverb. We also get a 3-band EQ, and we also get access to that vibrato circuit, which you can use the foot switch to turn on and off. Now, if you plan on using this amp with pedals, especially overdrive circuits, turn the bright switch on. It tends to give them a little bit more life, especially if you're playing live. Here's the back panel of the amplifier. This is where it's got a lot of stuff going on that you won't find on a valve amp. So we get an XLR out over here, which gives us 2 different impulse responses that we can then send to a sound card or a PA system or whatever you choose to run it into, and get a really great representation of the amplifier, either mic'd up with a ribbon mic or mic'd up with an SM57. So I really love this feature, and you can change the output volume over here. This is where you turn the cabinet sim on and off. Over here we have our power attenuation. So at full 45 watts, you're getting the most headroom. It will stay cleaner longer and all that kind of stuff. And you can, of course, choose to run it on 22 watts and then crank it up a little further on the volume on the front of the amp, and it will break up a little bit more. Now, if you're gonna be playing at home, you can run it on 1 watt or 0.5 watts. I think that's pretty cool. One of the things I love about the Tone Master amps is that Fender put quality speakers in these amps. We get 4 10-inch Jensen P10R Alnico speakers, which you'll find in just about every Super-Reverb out there. I'm sure there's some exceptions to that rule, but my old amplifier had these exact speakers in the back of it. One of the things you'll love about this amplifier is it only weighs about 18 kilograms or 36 pounds. Compare that to the original Super-Reverb and you'll be smiling. That's one of the things that I didn't like about my old Super. It's the only thing I didn't like about it was the weight, but yeah, this is far, far lighter, making for a more portable option. All right, let's kick it off with some Stratocaster tones. This is my Fender American Original 50s Stratocaster. We're going into the vibrato channel of the amp. I have the bright switch on. The EQ is all set to 4, as well as the reverb, and we have the volume set to 7. So this is the sound of that. The vibrato circuit's actually off right now, and I've got the foot switch on the floor. The amp's mic'd up with a Sennheiser E906 and a Shure SM57. Bridge and middle pickups together. Here we go. Let's try neck pickup. Beautiful. Now with the bright switch off, let's take a listen to this. Yeah, all right. And now let's try the vibrato circuit. I have the intensity set to about 6.5 and the speed set to 3. Here we go. All right. Now let's turn the speed up a little bit and the intensity to 7.5. All right. One of the requests I had to throw into this video was to see how well it handled a pedal pushing the amp when it's on the edge of breakup. So they've emulated that tube distortion up at about 8 on this amp. Let's give this a shot. That is loud. So it does get louder and it gets a very big push of wind out of the amp. That's exactly what you want with any amplifier. Anytime you hit a pedal, it should sound louder and fuller and not do anything too weird. And it works really well with a tube screamer. Oh, that's the Maxon OD808. So there you go. Up next, we're going to see just how the amplifier sounds with the volume up on 10. This is another one of the requests I had. Now on the back of the amplifier, I've turned the attenuator down just 1 notch from maximum, so it's still loud. Here we go. I'm going to start with the volume control down. And now let's try it with this PRS SE Custom 24, loaded with a set of Missing Link Audio Peacock humbucker pickups, going into maximum volume on the vibrato channel, and I've just changed up the EQ to match this amp. So I'm going to start with the volume control down. Here we go. All right, a little bit more. A little more. And all the way up. It's loud. And now we're over to the normal channel of the amp. As I mentioned in the overview, this doesn't share the reverb or the vibrato circuit whatsoever, so it's just dead dry. I have the bright switch currently off. This is both pickups on my Telecaster. Woo! Bright. It sounds good, but you lose the reverb. And to me, part of the reason why you'd buy this is for that beautiful reverb sound. But if you like to have no reverb on your signal and a little bit of delay, this is how that sounds with the Crazy Tube Circuit's time delay. It's got a very bright sound, it sounds great. Cool. Up next, I wanted to compare the cab simulation out from the XLR port on the back of the amplifier up against the real deal SM57. Now there's two different modes. There's a ribbon microphone as well, which I don't own to compare it, but I'll show you how both of them sound. Firstly though, this is the SM57 in front of the amp. This is how that sounds. And now over to the XLR out in SM57 mode. Odds are that probably sounds better than the actual recording. I'm yet to hear that back, but I owned the Fender Twin and the XLR out on that was awesome. Now there's also mode 2 on the back of this, which is the ribbon microphone. Let's take a listen. Thanks for watching, folks. My name's Shane. A massive thanks again to Fender for the loan of this amp. If this video has been helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Links will be below. So I'm going to give you my thoughts about the Super-Reverb amp after using it now for the last couple of days. So does this sound like a Fender Super-Reverb? On the most part, absolutely. There's a couple of things that I've noticed with these Tone Master amps that is different to the original. And this could be a pro or a con depending on your type of vibe. So the first thing you'll notice when you turn these on, the noise floor is so low. There's next to no hiss coming out of the amp whatsoever. And if you're used to that, it's kind of weird because sometimes you're not even sure that you've left the amp on. There's just not a lot of that white noise coming out of the amp at idle. So that's pretty cool. It means if you're going to be recording with a microphone, for example, it's going to sound great. Also, the XLR out going into the recording directly into my sound card sounded fantastic. So there's no real sacrifice over using the IRs built into the amp going to a desk as opposed to miking it up. And being able to mute the speakers to record at night, for example, is a really big plus. Now let's talk a little bit about how it felt playing with pedals. Now, it does feel slightly different, and I've found this with all the Tone Master amps. There is a difference when you push a Tone Master versus an actual tube amp with pedals. It just feels a little bit different. and it responds a little bit differently, but you're not going to notice a huge difference if you don't have them side by side. And being that I don't have my old Super-Reverb here anymore, the tube version, I can't show you that, but I'm sure plenty of videos will be going up showing you the difference in that capacity. But it felt great with an overdrive. Now, where I think most of these amps struggle a little bit is when you start pushing them with a clean boost pedal. That's kind of the thing that doesn't respond in the same way that it will with a tube amp, but it still does the overdrive thing really well. I had no problems using both the overdrives I used in this video, plus the delay pedal. So there's two things I've noticed about the Tonemaster amp that is different to that of my original Super-Reverb tube amp, and that's the reverb circuit in this. It just goes on and on. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a firmware upgrade at some point from Fender, making the trail a little less long. It seems a little over the top. You sort of have to mute it with your foot switch from time to time, otherwise it just keeps on going, right? So yeah, I don't remember my amp ever having quite as long of a reverb as that. It did dwell for a long time, but nowhere near as long as this. The second thing I noticed that was different, running the amplifier at full 45 watts on the back, I had far more clean headroom on this amp than I did on my original. My other one was starting to get dirty around 5.5 or 6. With this one, you've really got to get it up to about 7, and that will depend on the guitars you're playing. But with the same guitars I had in this video, on the most part, I would have to run my old amp a lot lower in terms of its output volume to make it stay clean, whereas I can throw this up to 7 and still have it relatively clean. One of the questions I saw on my feed was, is this a better amplifier than the Twin, and is it better than the Deluxe Reverb? The answer is, it's a different amplifier altogether. You're getting a different sound. So if you're buying a Twin, you're buying that particular sound. If you're buying a Deluxe Reverb, that's what you're getting. They all sound different to each other. Just because it says Tone Master and there's different speaker configurations, it doesn't mean they're voiced the same, right? So if you're a big fan of a Super-Reverb, you'd go for this, and if you want the Deluxe Reverb or the Twin, you'd go for those. In terms of this being loud enough to gig with, it is absolutely loud enough to gig with. That 200 watt power amplifier in here really emulates the 45 watts of power you would get from an original Super-Reverb. So it's got that going for it as well. I would have no hesitations recommending this for someone who wants to gig, with the exception of if you've already owned one, or if you're comparing it up against an original tube one, there will be some inherent differences. Thanks again for watching. My name's Shane. A massive thanks again to Fender for letting me borrow this. Catch you soon. See ya.